Stop. Do not say a single word. Not hello. Not what did I do? Not even your own name. Because here is the terrifying truth almost no one realizes until it is too late. The first 5 words that come out of your mouth when a police officer approaches you can be the difference between walking free and spending the next decade behind bars. So here's the question that might just save your life one day. What is the very first thing you would say if those blue lights flashed in your rearview mirror right now? In this video, we are going to dismantle everything you thought you knew about your right to remain silent. We are going to uncover a hidden danger in the American and British legal systems that most lawyers do not even warn you about. A single casual sentence spoken out of politeness or nervousness that has sent thousands of innocent people to prison. And by the end, you are going to understand a shocking truth about how police use your own words against you before you have even been arrested. But first, we need to go back to a quiet night in 2013, to a man who made a mistake that you or I could make tomorrow. Imagine you are driving home late. The roads are empty, you are tired, maybe a little distracted. A police car pulls out behind you, lights flashing, your heart rate spikes, you pull over. An officer walks up to your window, flashlight in your eyes, and asks a simple question. Do you know why I pulled you over? What do you say? Be honest. Most people say something like, no, officer, I have no idea. Or, I am sorry, was I speeding? That right there, those 5 words. I am sorry, was I speeding? In the eyes of the law, you have just done something extraordinary. You have given them evidence. Here's where it gets strange. Most people believe that you only need to worry about what you say after you have been handcuffed or read your rights. That is a myth, and it is a dangerous one. In both the United States and the United Kingdom, anything you say during what is called a consensual encounter or a voluntary conversation is completely admissible in court. You do not need to be under arrest. You do not need to have a lawyer present. You do not even need to be read your rights. The moment you open your mouth, those words belong to the prosecution. Think about that for a second. A police officer can walk up to you on a public street, ask you a casual question about your day, and if you say something that contradicts a piece of evidence they find later, that casual sentence becomes the cornerstone of their case. This changes everything. It means that the most dangerous moment in any interaction with law enforcement is not the interrogation room. It is the first 30 seconds. It is the small talk. It is the moment you try to be helpful or polite or cooperative, because cooperation, in the legal sense, is not the same thing as confession. But police are trained to blur that line. Let us travel to Houston, Texas, 2016. A man named John was walking home from a convenience store. He matched a vague description of someone involved in a disturbance a few blocks away. An officer stopped him and said, "Hey, where are you headed?" John, completely innocent, said, "Just coming from the store on Elm. I live over on 5th. The officer thanked him and let him go. 3 hours later, John was arrested. Why? Because a security camera near the disturbance showed someone who looked vaguely like him, and his statement that he was coming from the store on Elm did not match the timestamp on the camera. He was not lying. He was just off by 10 minutes because he stopped to tie his shoe. But the prosecutor used his own words to suggest he was placing himself at the scene. The case was eventually dismissed, but only after John spent 72 hours in jail and paid a lawyer $5,000. All because of 5 polite words. Almost nobody talks about this part. The part where your instinct to be a good citizen is the very thing that prosecutors weaponize. You see, police officers are not required to tell you that you are a suspect. They are not required to tell you that you are being recorded. In most jurisdictions, they are allowed to lie to you, and they are absolutely allowed to let you talk yourself into a corner. The legal term for this is custodial interrogation, but here is the twist. The Supreme Court of the United States has ruled that you are only entitled to your Miranda rights when you are both in custody and being interrogated. But what about before that moment? What about when you are standing on the sidewalk, free to leave, but you do not know that you are free to leave? That is the gray zone. And that is where convictions are built. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been pulled over and thought, if I just explain myself clearly, they will understand? You are not alone. That is the single most common mistake people make. They believe that the legal system is about truth and fairness, but the legal system is about evidence and procedure, and your nervous, well-intentioned explanation is evidence. A British case from 2019 illustrates this perfectly. A young woman in Manchester was stopped by police after a minor traffic violation. She had not done anything wrong. Her taillight was broken, but she did not know it. When the officer asked, "Do you know why I have stopped you?" she said, "I think my light might be out. I'm so sorry. I have been meaning to fix it." That apology, that admission that she had been meaning to fix it, was used to charge her with operating a vehicle with a known defect. The fine was small, but the principle is enormous. She admitted to knowledge she did not legally have to have, and then something unexpected happened. A growing movement of legal experts, former prosecutors, and even some police officers have started warning people about this exact trap. They call it the presumption of politeness. And they say it is the most dangerous illusion in modern criminal procedure, because we are raised to respect authority. We are raised to answer questions. We are raised to believe that if we have nothing to hide, we have nothing to fear. But that is not how the law works. The law does not reward you for being nice. The law rewards you for being silent. But here is the deeper truth that most YouTube videos will not tell you. It is not just about staying silent. It is about how you stay silent. Because the first 5 words you say can also be the words that invoke your rights. And if you do not say them correctly, you might waive those rights entirely. In the United States, the Supreme Court case Salinas versus Texas ruled that if you are not in custody and you voluntarily answer some questions, your silence on other questions can be used against you in court. Let that sink in. If you are having a casual conversation with an officer and you answer 3 questions but then clam up on the 4th, the prosecutor can argue to the jury that your silence implies guilt. The only way to protect yourself is to explicitly and unambiguously invoke your Fifth Amendment right at the very beginning. That means the real magic words are not, "I want a lawyer." Those come later. The real magic words are, "I am exercising my right to remain silent." Say those 5 words and then stop talking. Not, "I think I should probably remain silent." Not, "My friend told me not to say anything." You must be clear, direct, and unequivocal. "I am exercising my right to remain silent." That is the first 5 words that save you, but almost nobody knows to say that. And police are legally allowed to continue asking questions even after you say it, hoping you will crack and say something else. Let us go back to the UK for a moment, because the law there is different in one critical way. In England and Wales, you do not have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination in the same absolute sense. Instead, you have the right to silence, but courts are allowed to draw adverse inferences from your silence. That means if you are stopped and you say nothing at all, and later at trial you come up with a defense, the jury is allowed to ask, "Well, why did not you tell the police that at the time?" This is the exact opposite of the American system in some ways. In the US, your silence generally cannot be used against you if you invoke it properly. In the UK, silence can and will be used against you in specific circumstances. This is why the advice for a viewer in London is different than for a viewer in Los Angeles. But here is the common thread in both countries. Anything you say before you are officially cautioned can and will be used against you. The caution in the UK is, you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defense if you do not mention when questioned something you later rely on in court. Notice that the caution does not protect you until it is read to you. Before that moment, you are on your own. Imagine the psychological pressure of that moment. A police officer is standing 2 feet from you. You are alone on the side of the road. Your adrenaline is spiking. And the officer is just being friendly. They ask where you are coming from. They ask if you have had anything to drink tonight. They ask if you know how fast you are going. Every single one of these questions is a trap, not because the officer is evil, but because it is their job to collect evidence. And your words are the easiest evidence to collect. No forensic lab, no warrant, no waiting. Just you talking yourself into a corner. So what does a smart, informed person do? They prepare before the blue lights ever come on. You decide right now in the safety of your living room what your first 5 words will be. And here is the strategy that defense attorneys actually recommend to their own families. First, hand the officer your license, registration, and insurance. Second, say these exact words. "Officer, I am exercising my right to remain silent." Third, say nothing else. Not, "I am not being rude," not, "I have nothing to hide." Nothing. If they ask why you are being difficult, you say nothing. If they threaten to arrest you, you say nothing. If they promise to make things easier, if you just explain, you say nothing. Because here's the secret they do not want you to know. In most cases, if you remain silent from the very first moment, there is nothing you can say that will make your situation better, and there are 1,000 things you can say that will make it worse. The only winning move is to not play the game. But wait, is that really realistic? Can you actually just refuse to speak to a police officer? In the United States, yes, with one major exception. In most states, you are required to identify yourself if you are lawfully detained. That means you must provide your name. That is it. Not your date of birth, not your address, not your reason for being there, your name. And in some states, you must show a driver's license if you are operating a vehicle. But beyond that, your silence is legally protected. In the UK, you are required to provide your name, address, date of birth, and nationality in certain situations, particularly if you are suspected of a traffic offense. But beyond that basic identifying information, your right to silence remains powerful. Now let me tell you about a case that will haunt you, a case that perfectly demonstrates why your first words matter more than anything else. In 2017, a man in Florida was sitting in his parked car outside his own apartment. He had had 2 beers earlier, but he was not driving. He was just listening to music. An officer approached because the car matched a description of a vehicle involved in a noise complaint. The officer asked, "Have you been drinking tonight?" The man, wanting to be honest, said, "I had 2 beers a few hours ago." The officer then asked him to step out of the car. Because the man admitted to drinking, the officer had reasonable suspicion to conduct field sobriety tests. The man passed all of them. He was not drunk, but he was arrested anyway for being in actual physical control of a vehicle while impaired. A law designed to catch people sleeping off a drunk drive in their back seat. The charge was later dropped, but the man lost his job because he could not make bail. His only crime was honesty. His only mistake was answering that first question. Think about the injustice of that. He was not driving. He was not swerving. He was not a danger to anyone. But because he said 5 words, "I had 2 beers earlier," he gave the officer the legal justification to escalate the encounter into an arrest. If he had simply said, "Officer, I am exercising my right to remain silent," the officer would have had nothing. No admission, no reasonable suspicion, no arrest. This is not theory. This is the actual documented reality of how policing works in the 21st century. The system is not designed to punish the guilty. It is designed to process the talkative. I want you to pause for a second and ask yourself a hard question. Would you have the discipline to stay silent? Put your phone down. Think about it. The officer is being polite. You are an honest person. You have nothing to hide. Every instinct in your body is screaming at you to explain, to justify, to cooperate. Saying nothing feels rude. It feels suspicious. It feels like you are admitting guilt by refusing to answer. That is the psychological trap, and it is exquisitely designed. Because the moment you open your mouth to explain that you are not guilty, you have already lost. The only way to win is to refuse to explain at all. And here is the final twist that most people never see coming. The police know this. They are trained in interrogation techniques that are designed to overcome your resistance. They will use rapport building. They will use sympathy. They will use fear. They will lie and tell you that your friend already confessed. They will tell you that the case is airtight and that talking will help you get a better deal. They will tell you that if you were really innocent, you would have nothing to hide. Every single one of these statements is a manipulation tactic, and the only defense is the same 5 words, over and over again. I am exercising my right to remain silent. I am exercising my right to remain silent. I am exercising my right to remain silent. You do not need to be rude. You do not need to be aggressive. You just need to be a broken record, and eventually they will give up. Not because they like you, but because they know that without your words, their case is much harder to build, and that is the entire point. So here is the truth. The first 5 words you say to police will either build a wall around your rights or tear it down. You get to choose. But you have to choose before you are in the moment, because in the moment, with the adrenaline and the fear and the flashing lights, your brain will default to politeness. Your brain will default to cooperation. And that default setting is exactly what the system is counting on. What would you actually say? Would you have the courage to stay silent? Or would you, like most people, start explaining yourself right into a pair of handcuffs? Let me know in the comments. And before you answer, remember this: silence is not weakness. Silence is the most powerful word you will never speak. One last thing, if you found this information valuable, there is a reason for that. It is because the system does not want you to know it. And now that you do, you have a responsibility to share it with the people you love. Because the person who needs this advice the most is not you. It is your teenager who just got their license. It is your parent who trusts authority too much. It is your friend who thinks the law is always fair. Send them this video. Because one day, those 5 words might be the only thing standing between them and a nightmare they never saw coming. Stay informed, stay silent, stay free.